Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, the other way. Let's see what happens.
¿Cómo te sientes?
¿Verdad?
Sí.
Me siente, tú no entiendes qué yo hace para ti.
Okay, so think for yourself how you would open this conversation in a healthy way, based on what you know to be healthy, based on what I've been talking about, that is more likely to work out. And that's what I mean by healthy, is more likely than not, more likely than other options to get our needs met and possibly to meet the other person's needs. But often we're really focused on ourselves, and that's fine. If we're healthy about it, it will become mutual. So in order for her to get her needs met, she, in all likelihood, wants him to apologize, wants him to know how she feels. But the way she broached the topic is demeaning. It's not as demeaning as other things that she said, but it's in that camp. She is basically saying, you're stupid. She says, I don't think you understand what I do for you. Now, if she follows it up with something that is not in the belittling, talking down to camp, then it will soften this sentence. But I've seen so many other sentences from her that are in the direction of being demeaning and belittling and talking down to him, that when she opens with this, I think for her, she's like, I'm being healthy. You're being more healthy than the other things that she will say, but she could be even more healthy, and pause it, maybe run through a couple options in your mind. But what I'll say is that a more healthy way to open a conversation like this is, so let me tell you my experience. I was concerned about, because she said this earlier, that you felt like you weren't a priority in my life because I still was friends with one of my exes. And you seemed upset about that, and I really wanted to prove to you that you are my priority. And so this birthday came up, and I thought, how could I make it so that he could feel special, that I could show him that he's my priority? Ooh, what if I do a big party? Ooh, what if I did a surprise party? I spent a lot of time and energy and money, and it was really hard, but I felt good. I felt like I could prove it to you. I felt like you deserve to know how special you are to me. And so I spent all this time, and I thought you would turn to me at some point upon me having this gesture for you, and you would thank me, that you would feel special, that you would recognize what I'm doing for you. I didn't need you to, worship me all night, but just some acknowledgement would have felt good. So when the party started and you seemed really happy, I was really happy, and you had a chance to thank everyone, and you didn't mention my name, it hurt. And then when your dad says, hey, you left Danielle out, and you didn't even look at me, and you just said, I already thanked her, then it really hurts. It really hurt my feelings. Okay. So the background, right, the build-up, that giving that background helps him to understand where she was at, because he might be like, well, maybe this wasn't even your idea, or maybe you just threw me a surprise birthday party, big deal. But to hear that she was trying to say something with it amps up the importance of message received from him. And so that gives him the opportunity to say, oh, okay, you were hurt. Whereas for her to broach it like this, to say, I don't think you know what I do for you, it could slot in, especially for him, given their history of, here we go again, I'm stupid, and I'm not going to take this crap. So let's see how they do. Maybe she'll, the next thing she'll say, because she seems to be in a more differentiated state.
No me siente tú tienes gratitude. Tú.
Right. Now, you could say that. You could say that he isn't exhibiting gratitude, but you don't know what I do for you, and you don't have gratitude. It's getting in that direction of you're in trouble, and I'm looking down on you, and there's something wrong with you, rather than you hurt my feelings, and then that invites him in. Now he has to defend himself. Now he has to say, what are you talking about? I have gratitude all the time. I thank you all the time. Also, you want me to have gratitude for things that I don't even want you to be doing to me. You tried to take over my butcher shop. You tried to take over my life. You try to change me. You want me to have gratitude for that? Like, no, I know what you're talking about when you say I don't have any gratitude. It just runs the risk of that at the very least.
¿Por qué tú crees yo no tengo gratitud?
cuando tu parte y tú dices cosas, gracias por la sorpresa, tu padre dice a tu esposa y tú no dices nada. Y es mucho embarrassing en frente de 21 personas cuando tú dices eso. No me gusta.
Okay, so that's better. It was embarrassing and I didn't like it. It's closer. A more vulnerable, more empathy-inducing statement would be, it hurt my feelings. It made me feel like you don't care about me. Like you don't even when someone prompts you to thank me for this party that I threw for you, it's like you didn't even want to do it. But this is in the more healthy direction, in my opinion.
Eso.
Es peor cuando tú haces tus planes con otra persona y no le cuentas a tu pareja.
Sí,
Entonces,
pero en la mañana hoy.
Ninguna mañana. Desde ayer. Ayer tú dañaste mi cumpleaños. Desde ayer. Un día antes de mi cumpleaños, sí. Tú me dices que tu amigo viene aquí y que tú quieras...
Okay. So he's still angry and resentful about things that have been happening. Probably a lot of things, but specifically this thing. Okay. I mean, it gives it context. I still don't think it would be a good idea that that's how you communicate that you're upset, by openly humiliating and demeaning your partner in front of everybody.
Ve a tu amigo tú tuviste relaciones con él. Un día antes de mi cumpleaños, tú me dices que quieres ver a tu amigo te quiere ver. Quiere ver a tu amigo un día antes de mi cumpleaños. ¿Cómo tú crees que yo me siento?
Okay, and he's talking about it in a more healthy way as well. Instead of saying I have a penis, he's saying the day before my birthday. It's not really specific, but it's definitely the more vulnerable direction. You can kind of read between the lines a little bit. Of the day before, you ruined my birthday, is what he's saying. And the day before my birthday, you tell me that you want to meet up with your ex-boyfriend, your ex-partner. The day before my birthday, that's what, how am I supposed to feel about that? And you hear the pain, I think, in his voice, rather than saying in a dismissive, macho way, nope, you're not going to do that. I'm the man. I have the penis.
Tú no sabes nada.
Yo no sé nada qué. Tú eres la que tiene que explicar.
And that's the direction she goes in, is don't be stupid. You don't know anything. You don't pay attention. You don't have gratitude. It's just this, I think what would be a more accurate thing for her to say would be something like, I think you think that this is a threat to our relationship. It's not. He's just a friend. I think I think that's what she's trying to say, but instead she's just saying, you don't know anything. You're not smart or something.
¿Cómo voy a estar feliz?
Yo puedo hablar.
No, pero explícame, ¿cómo tú quieres que estés feliz en mi cumpleaños?
Yo puedo hablar.
Habla.
Tú no sabes nada. Toda mi vida es para ti. Toda mi vida es para ti. Y tú tienes una cosa en tu mente, estás loco.
So she's crying, which is more vulnerable, expresses hurt, and she says, my whole life is for you. Okay, that's better. Saying you don't know anything, essentially you're dumb. That's one thing. It's another thing to say that, which is much more vulnerable, much more inviting, much more empathy-inducing in him. I'm guessing he'll have empathy right now.
And now, ahora yo necesito ir con tu familia, con Yoras.
Tú dices por qué yo no estoy contento en mi cumpleaños. Yo te explico por qué. Tú haces tus planes, tú tienes un esposo y tú no me dices nada. Un día antes de mi cumpleaños.
Cosas locas.
Ningún loco. No soy ningún loco.
So he's pretty closed off. Either he's always this way, or he is in a state of hurt. If he's in the relationship to, actually be with her, which, of course, her friends will think that he's just in it to get into the United States and doesn't really care about her, but that's not likely. And, there's no reason to directly believe that. But if we believe that he wants to be with her and wants to have a good relationship with her, that he is very hurt by her, and he has a particular way of dealing with that hurt, that is to shut down and to try to be flippant and dominant in a certain way, try to put his foot down or something. So if he does love her and doesn't want to be with her, then I'm just going to assume that at the baseline of all this, at the foundation of all this, is tremendous pain, tremendous hurt, and he doesn't know how to ask for it, but is hoping for this fantasy that she will say, I'm so sorry for all the things I've said. I'm so sorry for all the ways I've treated you. I'm so sorry for the way I talked to you. I'm not going to do that. And until that happens, he is just going to remain guarded and distant and however you want to call this. Just dismissive of her and like, I don't care about you. And, we all do that. When we're hurt, we will be that way towards our partners. Hopefully it's short-lived. Hopefully we have a way out of it and we know what's going on with ourselves and we can navigate ourselves out of it. So if that's true for him, there's a chance, and I've treated people like this, where they don't even really know. They're not aware that they're doing that. If you talk to them, they'll speak in that from their front of their mind sort of way. They'll just like, well, I just feel like, look at what she did to my birthday. And how am I supposed to be happy on my birthday? How am I supposed to thank her on my birthday when she did that to me? End of story. Instead of talking about all the pain and all the vulnerability and all the worries, and because presumably that's where it comes from, right? That he's worried he's going to lose her because if she is going to involve this guy in her life, then she could want to be with him and not with Yohan. There's also a possibility that his manhood is on the line, and that because of his indoctrination into toxic masculinity, he believes that in order to be a true man, in order to be an attractive, worthy human being, you have to not allow your woman to do what she was doing to him earlier in the season. That could be a factor as well. So, I'm just trying to figure out why he wouldn't have any empathy. But then he exhibits that, and then she starts to resort to that language again of saying that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Antes de mi cumpleaños. Ningún loco, no soy ningún loco.
Yo no quiero, siéntate aquí más. So yo ir, tú puedes, siéntate con tu familia, con tu
como quiera. Desde ayer tú dañaste mi cumpleaños. Desde ayer dañaste mi cumpleaños.
No problema. Yo quiero ir, so yo necesito.
Yeah. So this is not a good sign that you have for him. He's like, you ruined my birthday, so no matter what you do, I'm not going to be nice to you. And when I get a chance, I'm going to actually try to hurt your feelings. And I'm not going to listen to you. So they do it back and forth, right? When you're in that zone, we all get there kind of, every couple. I've been there before, but it should be short-lived, should be minor. This mode I've seen many, many times with the couples that come into my office. And if this is protracted over time, the amount of love that dies because of this, not only because you're being treated this way, but also because you live in a zone where you're trying to one-up your partner. You're trying to out-hurt the other person, right? And you're in that mindset of like, I'm against this person. Yeah. It's upsetting. Hey, deserving listeners, today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we are faced with tough choices, and the path forward isn't always clear. And some of you might even be facing a tough choice right now. Well, for me, I like to fully explore all the options. That usually helps me to feel more confident moving forward. And sometimes it really helps to talk with someone and get their perspective and maybe their wisdom. And of course, therapy can help with this. I never planned on specializing in this area when I started out as a therapist, but over time, a lot of clients have come to me when they are facing tough choices that they're having a hard time figuring out what to do. Well, one option worth exploring is BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's worth giving a try. It's entirely online, it's designed to be convenient and suited to your schedule, and also you can switch therapists at any time at no additional charge. So, let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
This is to make Yohan's life better, and he doesn't appreciate them, and he's very, it's either my way or the highway, and he's very ungrateful. And it's like, I'm realizing that I've had this relationship before, and it always ends badly. And so I need to go home and figure out what I want to do with my life.
Yeah. It's always hard for me because as a couples therapist, this issue is not hard to work on. It's not hard, especially at their stage. I mean, usually I get couples like this 25 years later after they've hurt each other for 25 years. So there's not enough time for them to resent each other the way that a lot of the couples that I've treated, they have, it's just hard to watch love die before my eyes when it could have been fixed if they had the help that they need. The other thing is that it's possible that he actually is trying to push her away, because it certainly would explain a lot of his behavior since she arrived. You know, we saw that I'm reminded of another couple. I can't remember his name. Mike and Jimena, was that her name? And he left and came back, and she was a lot different, if I remember right. And it seemed like she was done, had decided she didn't want to be with him, and was, you know, the first night when she picked him up from the airport, she like went out clubbing till 7 in the morning that night or something. And it just seemed like, oh, either consciously or subconsciously or a combination. This person is done and either can't admit it to themselves or can't say it to their partner, but they're doing everything they can to force the other person to break up with them.
Because I'm not going to live like this. It's not worth it for me.
And then the added insult that, you know, I didn't show it, but Danielle went on a whole epic journey to get this cake made. She had to argue with the cake maker. So that whole conversation with the cake maker, at first I was just like, Danielle, like, give him a break. Because the guy was like, I can't do that. The cook is already gone. I'm sorry, we just can't do that. And she's just like, I don't understand. How come you know, if that was me, even if I suspected the cake maker was lying to me, I'd be like, okay, well, it's your shop. You can, you know, lose a customer or not, and I guess I'll just try to go somewhere else, or I don't know, I'll just figure out some other option. But she just hung in there. She wasn't being completely jerk-facey, but in my head I'm like, give him a break. But then he actually did eventually warm up and say, oh, okay. And they have these scenes where he was basically doing all the things she was asking for, where she was actually putting the icing on herself. And so then I'm like, well, then why were you saying no to her in the beginning? Now maybe he's like just saying no because they're closing up. I don't know. I couldn't tell if she was being a bulldozer or he was lying to get her out of the store, because I don't know. Because sometimes employees at a store will say things where you're like, huh, I don't understand. You know, no soup for me? Why? Anyway. So it's added insult to her that while she's gone, he's like, he doesn't even know the effort that she put into this cake, I imagine. The other thing that I'll point out is that what she's focusing on a lot is that he's ungrateful for all the help that she has given him. I think that's code for money that she's given him, which, you know, we saw that attitude. I don't know if that's what she's saying, but we saw that attitude with Big Ed. There's some similarities there, and I've already pointed that out. But, you know, with Ed, he seemed to believe that with Rose, that because he's giving all this money and supporting her child, that Rose owed him. She owed him a lot of accommodations, and he could be a jerk to her, and because he gives her money, she's supposed to put up with it. She's supposed to give back. It's a money exchange, you know, service. And I don't know if that's what she's saying. Certainly, we don't see a lot of evidence, but I don't know. It's an interesting thing to kind of focus on. He's ungrateful. Ungrateful for what exactly? You know. Now, if she's like, he's ungrateful for the love I give him, and the amount of affection I give him, or something, or what I've given up to be here with him, but he wants to go to anyway. I just thought I'd add that detail.
Daniela te dice quiero sexo contigo.
Ahora?
Ahora sí.
No.
¿Eh?
No.
Why?
Because y'all are married, bro.
¿Tú piensas yo tengo amor para él?
No sé.
Danielle wants Yohan to meet the friend. So on one level, I commend Danielle for her very level-headed-ish campaign to orient the relationship in a way that is, I don't know, more conducive to everyone's needs given their cultural differences. She has men who are friends, and some of the men who are her friends she had a relationship with in the past, and he was, I think, exhibiting a cultural, version of what you're supposed to do in that culture, particularly if you're a man, and you're not supposed to allow your wife to be friends with a man, let alone someone that she had sex with in the past. And certainly in my culture, you will have that as well. So I think he was, operating from that place. And she really had a campaign effort to not have him say. Part of it was she would try to talk with him. He didn't accept that. Then she's like, look, I'm going to hang out with him. He's here, and I'm going to go hang out with him, and you're just going to have to learn that there's nothing to worry about. There's no threat. And I also want you to meet him. So on a certain level, it's bulldozing, it's disrespectful, it's hurtful, it's not very caring. Maybe if she went slower, but you can make the argument that maybe it's working. And if she just shows him, like, look, this is what's going to happen, and you're going to learn. Maybe you have no template, no model to go off of to support what I'm saying, and I'm just going to show you that there's no threat here. Okay. I don't know. I mean, I'm certainly in Danielle's camp when it comes to, hey, you can have friends that are along these lines, and it doesn't have to be a threat. It could be a threat, but it isn't always a threat. So for Danielle, that's what I'll say. And at first, I thought that when they arrived and they met Yohan and the friend, they seemed to be getting along. The fact that he's even there, I think, is a big deal. And that Danielle convinced him to do that. And then Yohan at first is joking around. He said, stand up, and they're standing side by side. The friend is 6'5". I think he's a semi-pro basketball player. That makes Yohan like 6'7", 6'8", which explains the height difference, because I think she's maybe 5 foot. I don't know. So he is seemingly happy. He seems like, I was like, oh, in fact, I'd never seen Yohan. Well, at the birthday party when he was surprised, he has this really nice big smile. He had a similar smile with the friend. But then he starts launching into these questions about, like, how big is your penis? And do you want to have sex with her? And now I'm wondering if he's passive-aggressively asking questions, wanting to dominate through these kinds of questions. And Danielle, I think, well, in a wise move, is like, I'm not going to ask him those questions. You're not being appropriate. You're being combative or invasive, or I don't know what you're doing. So then Yohan dials it back and is now asking, do you want to have sex with her? And he's saying no. So on one hand, Yohan might be asking for reassurance. On the other hand, he might just be in a hostile way. It is one way that people will try to dominate. They will. And if he is trying to dominate, it's pretty awful, because that version, it's one thing to be upset and threatened and combative. It's another thing to be calm and cool and to go after someone like that. That's, that's a special kind of hostility.
A veces, ella hace cosas que como que rompe esa confianza.
Sometimes I do things that break the trust.
Sí, a veces.
¿Qué?
Cosa. Tú dices una cosa y tú me demuestras otra.
¿Yo?
Claro.
No es verdad, mi amor. Tú sabes, no es verdad.
So it's interesting. It's giving them a chance to actually talk about this, and defensiveness is not going to help. She can, in her mind, think, I think he's not right about that. But if someone, especially him, because he doesn't talk this way, and that's a very vulnerable thing to say, and obviously critical to understand if you're Danielle. What do you mean? What did I do that was against? I think he might say that, well, the beginning of the season, you told me that we were going to live in the States, and when you arrived here, you just sprung it on me that we were never going to live in the States and we're always going to live here. And that is a bait and switch. And now I don't know if I can trust you. Maybe there's other things.
Porque yo pienso que tú no tienes confianza en yo. Tú quieres humillado yo. Y es porque tú necesitas poder. Y no me gusta eso.
Yeah, absolutely. And she was doing that to him earlier in the season. She wouldn't say that she's trying to humiliate him, because I don't think that was her intention. But from the outside, it looked like he felt humiliated and belittled. So I'm not saying that two wrongs make a right. I'm just saying that she's right, and he needs to apologize to her. And I just can't see him being vulnerable in this way and giving her a chance to apologize. I also can't see her recognizing it either. But yeah, she's right. He has been doing that to her.
No quiero llorar cada día porque tú es inseguridad, so tú necesitas, mira, yo es malo, porque tú eres inseguridad.
Yeah. And if I were there, I wouldn't recommend that she word it that way, because it's accusatory. It could be considered accurate, but when you accuse, it puts people on their back feet, they get defensive, and then they have a hard time empathizing.
Yohan keeps asking questions, not because he's really invested in the answers, but because he wants to make me uncomfortable. Any husband who is going out of his way to make his wife feel that way is not a husband that has unconditional love for her.
Yeah, and if that is what his intentions were, like I said earlier, it's really concerning. It'd be one thing if he was like huffing and puffing or in a bad mood. It's another thing to go on a Machiavellian mission to calmly try to screw things up or humiliate the two of them or something. I forgot that she might feel it, and he might be trying to actually humiliate her too with those sexual questions between the two of them. And yeah, it's pretty awful.
Lo siento. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to explain to him that, like, when he feels insecure, he humiliates me because he feels like that will give him more power.
Yeah, I think that's, there's different levels. Like, there's humiliation, and then maybe it's because he's trying to get power, but it's because of how hurt he was when she first landed that first time, that first stint that she was in Dominican Republic. So, the way she talked to him, it's hard to remember that version because he has so effectively changed the dynamic of their relationship. And honestly, without help from the outside, if she is effective in getting him to return to his old ways, I'm guessing that version of her will emerge again, but I don't know. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.